Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Scott Wright, and I am the Executive Director of the Retail Leadership Institute here at the North American Retail Hardware Association. And I want to thank everyone for joining us this afternoon to learn more about one of our key programs here at NRHA, and that is the Retail Management Certification Program. And we're going to learn more about RMCP, as we call it, by talking to two of the graduates of this program. Before we get started, I'd like to give everyone just a brief background on what the program entails. NRHA's Retail Management Certification Program is a college-level leadership and retail management development course that we launched back in 2013. We developed it with a lot of guidance from some of the leading independent retailers in our industry. And today we partner with Ball State University as our university instructional partner for the course. The focus of this program is to develop and strengthen the leadership and management capabilities of both owners and high potential employees working at home improvement retail stores. So let me talk a little bit about some of the key components of the course if some of our attendees are not familiar with it. The course structure includes 3 separate visits to NRHA headquarters in Indianapolis over the course of a 6-month period. And there's different learning themes assigned for each of the 3 visits. And they cover, visit 1 focuses on leadership development and business strategy. Visit 2 is where we get into retail operations, including marketing, merchandising, sales, store design, business process improvement, pricing, topics such as that. Visit 3 is where we focus on employee engagement, finance and benchmarking, budgeting, and project management. Speaking of the project, one of the key components of this course is that during the semester, each student has to complete a major business improvement project with the intent of offsetting the cost of attending. To date, we estimate very conservatively that of the 150 students who have graduated the program, their projects have provided more than about $7 million in ROI through either sales gains attached to their projects or expense reduction. This is a number that we're very proud of, and it has actually paid for the total tuition 4 times over when you do the math. Common project themes include inventory management, employee training related projects, and about anything else that, that you can think of. There's been 150 students, and there's been a lot of different project themes. The class size, each of the 10 classes that we've held so far has had between 15 and 20 students as part of a cohort going through the program. In the current class, for example, we have 15 stores attending from everywhere from Hawaii to Massachusetts to Louisiana and really all points in between. We've also had many students attend from Canada throughout the 10 classes that we've had. The curriculum of the program and the instructional split, if you will, about 60% of the curriculum is from the Ball State instructors. And the lead instructor, while I'm talking about Ball State, is a guy by the name of Dr. Rob Matthews. And he taught in Ball State's entrepreneurship school for about the past 20 years or so. But Rob actually grew up in the hardware business, and his folks owned some hardware stores when he was growing up, and then he and his wife have operated hardware stores and now a garden center. So he's had hardware in his blood and is a perfect teacher for this program with his experience and background. The remaining 40% of the instruction comes from experts in the home improvement industry who teach classes such as marketing and merchandising, store slotting, and store design, subjects that we feel only industry professionals and experts can teach effectively. Each student is also required to have a sponsor within their company. Generally, it's the business owner or a direct report or someone that the student directly reports to. And so this sponsor is someone the student works with throughout the semester to help develop and execute their project, but also to discuss what they've learned and how to apply it to the benefit of the business. So that's a little bit about the program. Now I would like to introduce our panelists today. The first panelist is Adam Barden, who owns 2 True Value stores in Vassar and Frankenmuth, Michigan. Adam was a graduate of the spring 2017 RMCP class And most recently, he sent his manager from his Frankenmuth store, Cassie Sirisan, who is a student in the current RMCP class. So Adam is serving as Cassie's sponsor this time around. Our second panelist is a graduate from the very first RMCP class back in 2013. TJ Colson is the Director of Retail Operations for Wilco, which is a chain of 19 farm and home and hardware stores located in Washington and Oregon. Like Adam, after going through the program, TJ has served as the sponsor for 2 other Wilco employees, Steve Byram, who went through the program in 2016, and most recently, Bobby Grinder, who just graduated from the fall 2017 RMCP class. So at this point, I would like to, for both of our panelists, to talk briefly about your current roles with the company and maybe provide a short overview of your experience with the RMCP program. So Adam, why don't we start with you, and then we'll talk to TJ.
Sure. Yeah, as Scott mentioned, we have 2 stores in Michigan. Our stores are primarily retail hardware with rather large rental department in one of our stores. The class for me was extremely helpful in making me become a better leader for our organization. Teaching me, I think, to focus on the things that I should be focusing on to grow our business. And it really left me with a lot of tools that I could use on a day-to-day basis. And ultimately, because of that, I decided that it would be a wise thing to send one of my high potential managers to the program, who's attending right now, as Scott mentioned. So I'm really excited about Cassie taking the course or the class and what she's going to bring back from it.
TJ, how about you?
Yeah, thanks, Scott. As Scott mentioned, I attended the very first inaugural class in 2013, and with 2 other coworkers, and we did our project as well. And what I think was super beneficial for us was the fact that it really gave us the tools to take it to the next level. I'm currently the Director of Store Operations for the 19 farm stores we have in the Northwest. At the time, I was just one of the store managers. And because of some of the tools and the teachings through the NRHA RMCP program, it helped elevate me in my career to position me for the next level. So very instrumental in that process. Owe a debt of gratitude to the NRHA and the RMCP program for that. A little bit quickly about Wilco. We're a little unique. We are affiliated with True Value, but we are more of a farm store model, carrying convenience, True Value hardware, and Benjamin Moore paint. Again, we have our stores are about 20,000 square feet and have anywhere from 35 to 40 employees working at a time. A little unique. They were kind of a lifestyle store, so but not really any different than most of your regular farm and feed stores and hardware stores.
All right, well, thanks, Adam and TJ. Now I would like to introduce Hillary Welter from NRHA, who will briefly talk about how the webinar will work for attendees and how you can ask questions during the webinar. So Hillary, take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. So everybody, like Scott has mentioned, we got a lot of your questions already in your registration forms. Thanks for sending those. We're really looking forward to discussing them. If you have any additional questions that come up as we're going through the QA, you should see a Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen. If you click that, that'll give you a chance to type your question over to us. We're going to do as best as we can to get all the questions answered today, either as they come in or as they make sense in our discussion or at the end. So go ahead and send those over. And if we do not get to them today, we'll make sure that Scott or Tom Markham or myself follows up after the webinar. And we'll be sure to get all your questions answered at some point.
Okay, great, Hillary. So why don't we go ahead and get started with some of the questions from today's attendees. And the first question is, how practical is the program related to the independent home improvement industry? And you guys heard me speak a little bit about the division of the instruction and the lead instructor and his background. So it is very focused on the needs of developing key future leaders in the retail home improvement space. But why don't we talk to our two panelists about that? How about you, TJ? Why don't you talk a little bit about that, and then I'll pass it to Adam.
Yeah. So the program is very practical. Sorry, I'm trying to manage the feedback here. The program is very practical to the independent hardware industry because it is not only coming from industry experts, but it is very targeted for our industry. I mean, it is where the business professionals who have paved the way for this industry come back and pass it on to the next generation. It is very specific, very tailored. One thing Scott mentioned earlier in the bio was the class size, and I think that helps tailor. Not only is it directly related to our industry, but the class size is very manageable, so you get the one-on-one student instruction that you're looking for.
Thanks, TJ. Adam, your thoughts on that?
There are some specific things in the course that come to me that really relay how practical it is. I can remember a few specific things around human resource management that I found extremely helpful. We talked very specifically about actual cases that people have encountered in their jobs as managers and how to handle them. We role played, you know, if you have somebody that has this type of issue or has that type of issue, we actually sat down and role played those with the rest of our classmates on how they would handle it and got feedback from the instructors. So, you know, something like that I think is invaluable, especially to a new manager that maybe hasn't had to deal with some of those issues before. It gives them some tools when it comes up on how to handle it. From a financial standpoint, I think the course is really incredible. It teaches people that maybe don't have a background in finance. What are the things you should be looking at in your financials? What should your financials look like? What should be contained in them? You know, where should you be concerned when you start to see this number, or when you start to see you know, expense ratio get too high? And then finally, I think the fact that all of your classmates are coming from other stores that are doing similar things to you, the information you get from them is just invaluable. And to me, that was the most valuable part of class, was learning how the different stores do things and you know, how they managed issues. And I learned so much from them as well.
Yeah, Adam, and I think that's a great point. When we ask students in some of our exit interviews after they've graduated the course, you know, what did you find most valuable? Almost everyone says it was so great to go through the program with the classmates that were in my class. They come from different backgrounds, but you know, we all could talk shop after class, during dinners. Most classes develop a Facebook group or a Google group or just an email chain where they continue to stay in contact. In TJ's class, I know it wasn't long before you know, they made the trip out to see some of their classmates on the East Coast to discuss the implementation of their project. So we hear about that a lot, is students visiting other students' stores after the class is over. So it's really learning that continues as you you know, stay in touch with your classmates. All right, the next question is from one of the attendees. I run a hardware store that my wife and I will be purchasing. Will this program be beneficial to our part of the succession plan? And let me just start by saying we have many sons and daughters of owners who go through this program who are starting the succession planning business transfer process. I would say in the last 3 classes, about half of the students have been family members who are getting ready to take over the business, and using this program as a start of that succession planning process. Adam, why don't I toss this question to you, as I know you went through a succession plan with your folks and then attended this course shortly thereafter.
Yeah, I don't know if you could call what we did a succession plan, because it happened rather quickly. I didn't talk about my background at all, but I actually spent 14 years in the automotive industry as an engineer. That was what I was trained to be, and what I did as a first career, I call it. I came back to my family business and approached my parents one day and asked them if they were interested in selling, which they were at the point of retirement or close to it. So we had about a 6-month transition of ownership to the point until they were completely out of the business. And I know that is not how most of our industry handles it. And I think the class would be extremely valuable for the individual or individuals that will be taking over the business, if for no other reason but to give the current generation the confidence that they have the tools to manage the business. One of the things that I see in our industry, as I talk to a lot of the younger retailers that are in place to succeed their parents, is that the parents are extremely unwilling to, I'll say, take the reins off and give decision-making ability to those younger retailers. And I think that is a real mistake on the part of people that have a transition plan or a succession plan. If you've elected that they're going to succeed you and they're going to take over, I think that it's in everyone's best interest to have a very specific timeline for how that's going to happen. If there's not a timeline, I think that it can lead to a lot of frustration. And so I think the class can hopefully impart some confidence that, hey, they've gone through this course, they have the tools to run this business, so we need to let them run the business now.
Now, TJ, although Wilco is not a family operation, you utilize this course as part of the development plan for key employees. And I'm thinking of the last student that you sent through the program, Bobby Grinder, who basically started the program when he started working for Wilco. Can you talk a little bit about how you utilized the RMCP program that way?
Yeah, very, very good example, and very similar situation with really all of our students. As Adam mentioned, it's a great way to pass the baton and give the folks the tools. Where we find the value in it is we'll hire or have an employee that's working for us that we identify has a lot of potential and could go to the next level. But what the RMCP program does for us is it allows us to invest in that student, and in return, the program stretches that student. It really shows us the capabilities of what that employee can do for the organization, and so that's where we find the benefit in the succession planning. Is we need to build the bench, we need to build the next level to the team, and sometimes we might have that thought in our mind of who the next leader will be, or the next manager, or the next department leader or district leader could be, but without really testing them, and even within our organization, while we have training department and programs in place, the NRHA RMCP program is one of those tools that we use in our training program to develop not only the next level, but to stretch that student to see what their true capabilities are, to help better position them for the right job.
Okay, the next question is, how do you feel this course has added to the value of your operational efficiencies? And this is a great question to start with Adam, because that was really the theme of your business improvement project, Adam, wasn't it?
Yes, specifically my business improvement project was to develop a tool that my store managers could use to keep track of the myriad of things that they need to accomplish every day, every week, every month, every year. It's basically a sheet where they can put their goals and their specific tasks that they need to be working on and keep track of them and assign them to other people. Because one of the biggest things that I see that we struggle with, the store manager position is extremely demanding position. And to do a good job, you have to be organized and be on top of everything that's going on in your store. And I find that a lot of people don't have those skills without some real training and some real help. So the point of my project was to give them a tool that will kind of help them keep their everything that's going on in front of them every day. And it's, I'll say that from my business improvement project to where we are now, it's been a long way, and we've made a lot of changes, and we're still making a lot of changes to how we do it. But it's certainly helped focus us in on the things that we need to work on to make our stores run smoothly and more consistently.
Yeah, and before I turn the question over to TJ, I do want to add that as a student in the program, you have access to all of the business improvement projects. So there's been 150 students go through the program to date. Students in the current class have access to all 150 of those projects that previous students have done, which is a valuable resource when they're developing their own projects, but also just looking through the list and all the different project themes is just a great resource ongoing. So TJ, when you talk about operational efficiencies, there's probably no better company or no company who does it better in the industry than Wilco. And I know a lot of your projects have focused on increasing operational efficiencies.
Yeah, we've had a multitude of projects throughout the years. Our project, it was even though it was merchandise efficiency, it was still operational efficiency to a degree, because it helped us develop a program to better review merchandise turns, return on footage, and really understand the value of maybe underperforming product in the store. So that was our project specifically. Since those projects, though, I think back to Amber and Stacia, two graduates that we had. Their project was the stocking program, and it was how do we get our out of stock percentage from 1.5–2% to under 1%. And right now, so we've had that project in place the result of their project in place for about 3 years, I guess, Scott, and that has been. Our stores are now running on an average about 0.5% out of stock, and we have a stocking team. So we really improved efficiencies by, the labor cost offset was made up for by the in-stock efficiency. So we were able to sell merchandise off the shelf, and we replaced the labor with increased sales. And then lastly, Bobby's project, our recent graduate from the fall class, his was delivery. And as you know, Scott, we were doing, our locations each have a delivery truck. In a lot of cases, these trucks are coming off of 5- and 6-year leases with less than 20,000 miles on them. Brand new trucks. So huge depreciation, underutilization of equipment. And we only had about $100,000 in annual revenue from delivery. With Bobby's project, we hired dedicated people for that position. We added some labor, but one of our big goals was to differentiate ourselves in the market and offer delivery every day of the week, have dedicated service for that, have subsidized or flat rate delivery charges. We're going to give up a little, we're going to add a little, but we're going to get much better utilization of the equipment. We're employing some additional people, and it's paid for by increased delivery, and that delivery is a differentiator in our market for us. All results of projects that our students have done while going through the class.
Okay, now our next question, how has the program benefited you professionally? So TJ, I'd like to start with you. As we mentioned, you were a store manager when you went through the program, but then your career took a turn on the fast track. So why don't you talk about where you were then and what you're doing now?
Yeah. So I've been with the company for 15 years, and about 4.5 years in, I was assigned to my first store manager position. And after kind of growing through the manager scale, because we have different size stores, so we have managers managing the different size and scale of stores we have, kind of progressed my way up, and I was at a large, what we call a large store. So a full 20,000 square foot store with 40 employees for a few years. And really the catalyst to the next position, which was me becoming an area district manager, was after my successful completion of the RMCP program. Again, going back to what I mentioned earlier, my company saw that I had some potential, made an investment in me to grow, both professionally and personally, and that investment paid off because they were able to stretch me and see that I had capabilities and skills beyond my current capacity as a manager. So I was moved into a district manager position for 2 years, and then was just, as of about 9-10 months ago, promoted into the director of store operations position, overseeing all the stores, which is a responsibility. I have 6 direct reports, manage our outside sales division, and have about 670 indirect reports. So pretty large jump in a short period of time, but a lot of it, again, I can attribute a lot of it back to being able to participate in the program and really show what I was capable of doing, and the program helped with that.
Adam, this is a slightly different question for you. It's the same question, but you came from a professional background and then came back to the hardware store. So how did the program benefit you on a professional level?
It made me a better retailer all the way around. I can tell you that. It made me really focus, I think, on the things that are important in our business that we need to improve on. It allowed me to see how other people are doing things better than we are in areas that we could make some real fast improvements. So from that standpoint, it helped me tremendously because I had a professional career in another industry, but honestly, in retailing, I had very little experience. I had experience from when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, stocking shelves and that kind of stuff. But I didn't have any experience running a retail operation. So the class has really helped me, polish those skills and become a better retailer.
The next question is, what was your previous training before going through the program? Adam, why don't you take this one?
Well, on the hardware side, I had taken a lot of Retail Hardware Association classes that they offer, and just general hardware knowledge, I'll say. Professionally, my training, I mentioned I went to engineering school. I was an engineer. I had obtained an MBA while I was an engineer. So from a business standpoint, I had training before coming into this on the financial side and on the human side, people management side. I was a manager in my previous career, so I had a lot of experience managing people. But the retail nuts and bolts of it is the area that I was weak in terms of training. That this course really, I think, helped round my skill set out. And like, as I mentioned in the previous question, just kind of, I think, made me a better all-around retailer.
TJ, I know Wilco does a lot of different types of training, and I know that RMCP is just one of the training components. Talk about what types of training you went through before attending RMCP.
Yeah, we participate in Dale Carnegie and more training and some others. Um, the other the other course that I took that was similar to the RMCP program was actually offered through Land O'Lakes, uh, their business development division, and it was tied in or in conjunction with Purdue University. It was a great certificate program, very similar. It was a year, I think that course ended up being a year-long program, several trips back to Minnesota. Uh, I much I prefer Indiana over Minnesota, so especially in the winter, Indy's been pretty gentle to me in the winter, the trips back there. But that said, it was a great program. The unique difference, though, I think from that program to the RMCP was the Land O'Lakes program. I was the only retailer in that group. Most of the other participants, the other 15 or 16 participants in that program, were all managers, general managers, CFOs, and other things not uncommonly found in our NRHA's program, but they were all in charge of traditional grain co-op businesses, and agribusinesses, agronomy centers and things, and it was a much different it was greatly different for me because I was a retailer, the only retailer, and so they were looking for ways to grow sales. Well, they were growing sales or growing profits. Let me rephrase that: growing profits by trying to grow sales by adding new equipment, where the retail mind in me was trying to manage labor and cut back on expenses to grow profits. So it was a very distinct and a different group, where with RMCP, you're partnered with other retailers. Kind of going back to the very first question you asked is, how's the program related? You're in class with students who are living and breathing the hardware industry just like you. And I found that to be the biggest benefit is that connection.
Okay. The next question is a very specific question. Was a pay increase expected or factored into your participation? Now, Adam, as an owner, did you give yourself a big raise after graduating?
Yeah, big bonus. I gave myself a big bonus. Yeah, so obviously that part's not really myself personally. Hopefully in the long term, it makes us a better run business, and that will give me a pay raise. But I think, more importantly, I have an employee in the program right now, and I have not talked to her about a pay raise associated with the program. But I can tell you that after she completes the program, when I look at, who do I trust in my organization to be a leader and to make decisions, she's going to be at the very top of that list. And, when we do look at pay increases and bonuses and things like that, it certainly will factor in to that. So for me, yeah, this will be a huge feather in someone's cap when we're looking at, who's really going to move ahead in our organization, who took the initiative to go above and beyond and improve themselves. Well, obviously, we make an investment in an employee to do this, but they make a big investment too of their time and energy and focus to do this. So, to me, it means a lot that somebody is willing to do this.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, you mentioned the time factor, and that really leads us into our next question. How did you manage the time commitment? Was it hard to be away from your business? And this is a question we get quite often from students coming into the program. And there are obviously 3 visits to Indianapolis that take the better part of a week, each of those 3 visits. And then there's the in-session homework and work on your project. And I mean, it could be, 20, 30 hours per visit that you have to spend, plus the time away from the store. So, Adam, why don't I start with you? Talk about how you managed the time that you spent away from the store and throughout the semester.
Sure. Well, the coursework, it certainly is a time commitment. I probably, during the class, I would say I spent anywhere from you know, 2 to 8 hours a week working on course-related materials, and you know that mostly was done at night at home. So it certainly is a commitment. I didn't see it as a real big problem or inconvenience, so because it was a lot of it was really interesting, so I enjoyed doing a lot of it, and B, you know, it's time that I probably would have been doing something else work related anyway. So I felt like it was going to improve. It was more valuable than maybe something else I was doing anyway. So that really for me wasn't much of an issue. You know, the time away from the store, especially, you know, our class was in the spring, which is our busiest season. You know, May and June are our 2 busiest months of the year, as they are probably for a lot of people. And being away from the store certainly is, it takes work, but I also think that it was really good for me to have to go away from the store in the middle of a review season. One thing that, you know, I find that I tend to do is the more I'm in the store on the floor, the more, you know, things I take on and the more responsibilities I don't allow the rest of my staff to take on, things that they're capable of, but maybe I just do. So I think that it was really good for me to make myself be away from the stores, and let the stores run themselves. And the issues, when you do that, you know, the issues that you have in your organization operationally will kind of make themselves surface. And then you can know what you have to work on. So, you know, I'm not going to say that it made it so that my stores can totally run without me, but I feel pretty comfortable walking away from either one of my stores for a week or two if I need to, that, you know, the important things will get taken care of.
Okay, TJ, how about you? Think all the way back to 2013 when you were a student, but also talk a little bit about how you help your students manage their time during the semester.
Yeah, I think Adam hit on it perfectly. And one of the things is you figure out how to reprioritize your work. You're going to spend that time working regardless. If you're putting in 45, 50 hours a week, you're going to do it no matter what. That's indicative of who we are, but I think it's just a matter of reprioritizing. So for me as a sponsor, I spend a lot of time meeting with my students, conference calls, phone calls, webinars, whatever it takes, and then just setting deadlines and prioritizing that we have to allocate a certain amount of time each week, to the project, and spend some time each month catching up on it and involving others from around the organization into the project as well. And it's not any more time. It's just a redirection or a refocus of the time already being spent on the job. Being away from the store, thinking back on it, it's hard to be away from our stores, managers, owners, it doesn't matter. But looking back on it, it was just good communication with the team, laying out the expectations. And like Adam mentioned, just seeing who can get it done. And really that can expose the next layer. And that's what we're looking for, is to find who the next person is that can rise up.
Before we move to the next question, I just want to, let our attendees know we're going to be wrapping up in about 5 minutes with our last couple questions. So if there's anything else that you would like Scott or our panelists to answer, either, as we wrap up or after the webinar, please make sure you send that through the Q&A or through the chat box so we can make sure we get all your questions answered today.
Okay, thanks, Hillary. This is a common question that we get. This next one: what makes the program worth the price tag? And we talked a little bit earlier in the call about the ROI components that are built into it with the project. And there's something called the quick win assignment that students have to do before they graduate after the 3rd visit, where they have to pick 3 things that they learned in the program and implement them to try to drive that ROI piece. But Adam, in your mind, what makes this program worth the price?
Well, depending on the project that you choose, I think it would be relatively easy to choose a project that you can on paper show pays for the class. I mean, if you just want to talk about inventory in pretty much any store you walk into, I'm sure you could find a project that'll compensate you for the cost of the class. You know, my project and even Cassie's project are not projects where it's as easy to draw that line to direct reconciliation of the money. However, you know, you have to look at you're improving the quality of your team by doing this exponentially, really. And there's a really difficult to quantify value there, but there's definitely a huge value there. And then with the project in the cases that we're doing, which are based around how do we become more operationally efficient. Again, those numbers might be a little harder to quantify, but over time, you know, it's a multiplying factor that just keeps giving back to your organization as long as you stick to those things. So I really think, you know, the price of it is really reasonable. You know, honestly, it's expensive. I'm not saying it's not expensive, especially for a small organization, but it's really reasonable for what you get out of it. We've taken so much from it. And our company just in the last year is already, we do things so much smarter than we did a year ago. And I know when Cassie comes back, her store is going to gain so much from the things that she's bringing back. I really think it could be more than it is, and it would still be a good value.
TJ, Wilco has sent 11 students through the program in the last 5 years. So what makes the program worth the price tag to you?
Yeah, we've sent 11, and of those 11, Scott, kind of maybe jumping ahead a little bit here, we still have 10 of those employees working for us. And of those 10 employees, all of them have advanced in their career at some point. Maybe not by title, but by level of professionalism, their ability to be leaders, to contribute to the organization at a much higher level. The investment was minimal for the huge return that we've seen or had from the program. So, it's been priceless from the education you get. Of course, I'm going to say it's worth the price because, you know, I've had personally good results and growth from it, but it's done that for my coworkers as well. Every one of them has developed professionally through their career or personally, in that it's really hard to put a price on.
Okay, the last question that was submitted was one about that TJ just touched on. Of the 11 students that Wilco has sent, 10 are still with the company. So there is always that potential that you'll spend a lot of time and money on someone sending them through the program, and then they might leave. But what we look at, I had a chance to look through the overall roster of the program since we started. And so of those 150 students who have been through the program since 2013, there are 11 that I know of who have moved on to other careers. But of 150 students, that's pretty good. And that really was reflected in Wilco's experience. Of the 11 students they've sent, 10 are still with the company. So with that, Hillary, are there any questions that we can answer before we conclude?
You know what, Scott, at this time we have actually covered all of the questions that our attendees have submitted. Why don't you let them know how to get a hold of you should they have any other questions come up as they reflect on the webinar, or maybe where they could find some more information online.
Absolutely. Anyone listening who has additional questions can contact me directly. Email is always a good way to reach me. My email address is swright, WRIGHT, @nrha.org. you can certainly go on nrha.org and pull up the Retail Leadership Institute tab, and there's all kinds of information on the Retail Management Certification Program and the other courses that we offer through the Retail Leadership Institute. So with that, I certainly want to thank our panelists, Adam and TJ, for their time today. I want to thank all the attendees for taking time out to learn more about RMCP. And Hillary, I want to thank you for coordinating all this. Thank you, everyone.